Well, now comes the fun part, the homework. And I'll say that I think it's very important to have a diligent work regimen and work routine that you go through. And if you don't, I can help you develop something. And we'll be talking every week about what I think is important for you to have within your routine and your regimen. Okay? So, a brief recap of the harmonic series and why it's important, this concept of the fifth, this triad that stems from any fundamental, really letting that seep in, and why a major triad has such resolution and such stability, right? And then this concept of the fifth that gives us this tonic dominant tonic relationship, this 5-1, right? Which we hear in everything it's like the common denominator of everything, from the most simple music to the most advanced music. It's like, in mathematical terms, it's like using addition and subtraction and then using algorithms, right? It's like the common denominator is most always this tonic, dominant to tonic 5-1 function. Okay, letting that seep in, right? When you go to gig this weekend, see if you can hear when the bass and rhythm section is playing. Right? You're going to start to hear it everywhere. Okay? When you listen to Bach, you'll hear it. When you listen to Jose Alfredo, you'll hear it. When you listen to sambas, you'll hear it. Okay? This awareness and this getting into analytical listening. Okay. I also want you to fill out the rest of your circle of fifths. We talked about the first 3 key signatures moving up in our sharps, and we talked about the first 2 moving downwards, cycling 5 for our flats. I want you to fill out all 12 for both sharps and flats and start to memorize these. What key centers have how many key signatures, and what those sharps and flats are, and not only what they are, but why they are. So going back to this every day will help it to become a part of your musicianship. Now, I want to talk about listening. Analytical listening versus leisure listening, which I've talked about before. We don't want to just put something on in the background and just listen to it. We really want to sit down and analyze, be able to pick out key centers, be able to pick out harmonizations, be able to pick out orchestrations, what instruments are playing, how they're interacting with one another, so that our ears metaphorically get really big. And every week I'll leave some traditional mariachi listening and some classical or some jazz listening to supplement. Now, I think that everybody should listen to some Bach weekly or even daily. So I would say Bach's Inventions, for sure, Bach's Well-Tempered Clavier, which are his preludes and fugues, which I consider the Bible of Western harmony. So again, Bach's Well-Tempered Clavier, preludes and fugues. They're little golden nuggets, snapshots of how to use Western harmony. And we'll get into analyzing some of these later in the course. I also think everybody should start listening to Jose Alfredo Jimenez, listening to his phrasing, going through his catalog. Now that we have our phones where we can access YouTube and Spotify and Apple Music, we have all of these catalogs at our fingertips. Going in and listening to everything you can of his interpretive style, what the orchestration behind him is like, and really paying attention to these things so that, again, our awareness is developed and more acute. Join me again next week when we get into talking about intervals.